Commander Sarah Chun stared at the holographic display floating above her desk, watching the last commercial transport ship disappear beyond Earth's orbital perimeter. The massive alien vessels that had surrounded their planet for the past 72 hours maintained their perfect formation, creating an impenetrable barrier that stretched from the moon's orbit to the edge of Earth's gravitational influence. "Ma'am, we've lost contact with the mining station on Europa," reported Lieutenant Martinez, his voice tight with barely controlled anxiety. "The consortium fleet is jamming all long-range communications beyond the quarantine zone." Sarah nodded grimly, her fingers drumming against the polished surface of her desk. As director of Earth's Planetary Defense Initiative, she had spent the last decade preparing for potential extraterrestrial threats. But nothing in their contingency plans had accounted for this scenario, a complete galactic isolation imposed by the very species that had welcomed humanity into the interstellar community just 50 years ago. The Galactic Trade Consortium had arrived at Earth in 2075, offering humanity membership in their vast network of civilizations spanning thousands of star systems. It seemed like a golden age was beginning. Human technology advanced by centuries in mere decades through alien knowledge sharing. Earth's population had access to clean energy, advanced medicine, and the promise of unlimited expansion among the stars. Now all of that was being stripped away in a matter of hours. "Director Chun," came a voice from her communicator. "The President is requesting an immediate briefing. The alien ambassador is making his final statement before departing the planet." Sarah stood, straightening her uniform. At 45, she had seen humanity rise from a single planet species to active participants in galactic civilization. The irony wasn't lost on her that she might now witness their fall back into isolation. The briefing room in the underground facility buzzed with tension as Sarah entered. President Martinez, no relation to the lieutenant, sat at the head of a long table surrounded by military advisors, scientists, and intelligence officials. On the main screen, Ambassador Kelthera of the Zephyrian delegation stood before the United Nations Assembly, his tall, willowy form draped in the ceremonial robes of his species. Honored representatives of Earth, Kelthera's translated voice carried an unmistakable note of finality. "The Galactic Trade Consortium has reached a unanimous decision regarding humanity's continued participation in our alliance." Sarah felt her stomach clench. She had suspected this was coming ever since the reports began filtering in from the outer colonies. Human settlements were expanding too rapidly. Their technological adaptation was proceeding faster than anyone had predicted, and, worst of all, human military innovations were making even the most advanced alien species nervous. Recent developments have demonstrated that humanity possesses capabilities and tendencies that pose a significant risk to galactic stability, Kelthera continued. "Your species' rapid militarization, combined with your unusual adaptability and aggressive expansion patterns, has been deemed incompatible with the peaceful coexistence that our consortium represents." President Martinez leaned forward. "What specific incidents are you referring to, Ambassador?" Kelthera's large, dark eyes seemed to focus on something beyond the assembly. 3 months ago, human forces in the Kepler system successfully defended against a Vortak-raiding fleet using tactics and technologies that should not exist. Your species has been part of our community for only 50 standard years, yet you have developed weapon systems that rival those of civilizations with millennia of advancement. Sarah knew exactly what he was talking about. The Battle of Kepler 442 had been humanity's first major military victory against a hostile alien force. The human fleet, outnumbered 3-1, had used a combination of innovative tactics and rapidly developed technology to not just repel the Vortak raiders, but to capture several of their vessels intact. The victory had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Furthermore, Kelthera continued, your expansion into formerly neutral systems has proceeded without proper consultation with established territorial authorities. The rate at which humans reproduce and colonize new worlds has exceeded all projections. At current rates, human population will constitute a significant percentage of galactic citizenship within 2 centuries. You're afraid of us, President Martinez said quietly. The chamber fell silent. Kelthera's expression, difficult to read on his alien features, seemed to confirm the president's assessment. Fear is an inadequate term, the ambassador replied. Concern for the stability of our alliance is more accurate. The consortium has existed in relative peace for over 10,000 years. The introduction of a species with your particular characteristics threatens that balance. Sarah watched as murmurs erupted throughout the assembly. She understood the aliens' perspective, even if she disagreed with their conclusions. Humanity had always been adaptable, innovative, and aggressive when threatened. Those traits had allowed them to survive on a hostile planet, develop technology at an unprecedented rate, and now thrive among the stars. But those same traits made other species nervous. "What does this mean for our existing colonies?" asked the Secretary General. "All human settlements beyond your solar system will be evacuated. Your people will be given 60 standard days to return to Earth or face permanent exile from consortium space. All technology transfers will cease immediately. All trade agreements are hereby terminated." The room erupted in shouting. Sarah remained silent, her mind racing through the implications. Humanity had 17 established colonies and over 300 research stations scattered across 42 star systems. Millions of humans would need to be evacuated, and Earth would need to accommodate a massive influx of refugees. But more concerning was the technological isolation. Earth's industrial base had become dependent on alien materials and manufacturing processes. Without access to quantum processors, exotic matter, and advanced energy systems, human civilization would face a technological regression that could last for centuries. Director Chin, President Martinez, called out over the chaos. "What's our defensive posture?" Sarah stood, consulting the tablet in her hands. "We have a home fleet, 12 heavy cruisers, 47 destroyers, and over 200 smaller vessels. But, sir, we're completely outclassed. The consortium fleet surrounding us includes battleships from at least 8 different species. They could sterilize the planet if they chose to." "Would they?" the president asked. Sarah looked back at Ambassador Kelthra on the screen. The alien was gathering his robes, preparing to leave the podium. "I don't believe so. They want us contained, not extinct. But if we try to break the quarantine..." Her words hung in the air like a death sentence. Humanity had climbed so high, only to be cast down by the very beings who had lifted them up in the first place. "Ambassador," President Martinez called out before Kelthra could leave. "Is there any possibility of negotiation? Some way to prove that humanity can coexist peacefully with the consortium?" Kelthra paused, his alien features showing what might have been regret. "Perhaps, in time, your species will develop the wisdom necessary for galactic citizenship. The isolation is not permanent, but it will be measured in centuries, not years. Humanity must prove that it can evolve beyond its current aggressive tendencies. And if we refuse to accept this isolation," the president pressed. For the first time, Kelthra's expression hardened. "Then, the consortium will take more direct action to ensure galactic stability. The choice is yours, humanity. Accept isolation and continue to exist, or resist and face the consequences." With that, the transmission ended, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. Sarah felt her secure communicator vibrate against her wrist. She glanced down at the message that appeared on the small screen, her blood running cold as she read the coded text. "Sir," she said quietly to President Martinez, "I need to speak with you privately." Immediately, the president noticed the urgency in her voice and quickly dismissed the assembly. As the room emptied, Sarah remained behind with only the president and his chief of staff. "What is it, Director?" President Martinez asked. Sarah showed him the message on her communicator. "Project ZEUS is requesting immediate activation authorization. Dr. Petrova says the system is ready for deployment." The president's face went pale. Project ZEUS was humanity's most classified military program, known to fewer than 20 people on the entire planet. It had been developed in absolute secrecy over the past 15 years, using a combination of reverse-engineered alien technology and uniquely human innovations. "Are you certain the system is operational?" the president asked. According to Dr. Petrova's team, ZEUS achieved full operational capacity 3 weeks ago. They've been running simulations ever since, waiting for activation approval. President Martinez stood and walked to the reinforced window that looked out over the underground facility's main operations center. Hundreds of technicians worked at their stations, coordinating Earth's response to the crisis. None of them knew that humanity might possess a weapon capable of changing the entire balance of power in the galaxy. "What are the projected casualties?" the president asked quietly. Sarah consulted her tablet, accessing files that required her highest security clearance. "If deployed against the consortium fleet in our system, minimal human casualties. Alien casualties would be significant. But, sir, the political ramifications would be enormous," the president finished. "We'd be declaring war on an alliance that spans thousands of worlds." "Yes, sir. But we'd also be demonstrating that humanity isn't defenseless. The consortium might reconsider their position if they realize the cost of keeping us isolated." President Martinez was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the bustling operations center. Sarah could see the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. Activate ZEUS and risk a galactic war, or accept humanity's exile and watch their civilization slowly regress into technological stagnation. "How long before the consortium fleet expects our formal surrender?" he asked. 6 hours, sir. They want official acknowledgement of the quarantine and a commitment to begin evacuating the colonies. "And how long would ZEUS require for full deployment?" Sarah checked her notes again. According to Dr. Petrova, the system can be activated in under 10 minutes. Full effect would be achieved within an hour. The president turned back to face her, his expression grim but determined. "Director Chun, I need you to arrange a meeting with Dr. Petrova's team. I want to understand exactly what ZEUS is capable of before I make this decision." "Sir, if we're going to activate the system, we need to do it before the consortium expects our response. Once they receive our surrender, their guard will be down. If we wait, I understand the tactical considerations, Director, but I'm not going to authorize the use of a weapon system without fully understanding its capabilities and consequences." Sarah nodded, though she wondered if they had the luxury of caution. The consortium fleet surrounding Earth represented the combined military might of dozens of advanced civilizations. If humanity was going to make a stand, it would need every advantage it could get. "There's something else, sir," Sarah said, consulting her tablet once more. "Intelligence reports indicate that the consortium's decision wasn't unanimous. Several species voted against the isolation, including the Altarians and the Centauri Federation. If we could demonstrate our strength, we might find allies among the existing consortium members. Or we might unite them all against us," the president replied grimly. Sarah had to acknowledge that possibility. Humanity's situation was precarious no matter which path they chose. Accept isolation and face slow decline, or fight back and risk total annihilation. "Schedule the meeting with Dr. Petrova for 1 hour from now," President Martinez decided. "And, Director, make sure we're prepared for either choice. If we decide to activate ZEUS, I want the system ready for immediate deployment. If we choose surrender, I want our evacuation plans finalized." As Sarah left the briefing room, she couldn't shake the feeling that the next few hours would determine humanity's fate for generations to come. The consortium had made their position clear. Humanity was too dangerous to remain part of galactic civilization. But they were about to discover that isolating Earth might have been the worst mistake they could have made. Dr. Katia Petrova waited in the deepest levels of the facility, surrounded by technology that represented 15 years of humanity's most ambitious and secretive research. Project ZEUS was more than just a weapon. It was humanity's insurance policy against exactly this scenario. The consortium thought they knew what humanity was capable of. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Katia Petrova stood before the massive central console of Project ZEUS, her weathered hands trembling slightly as she reviewed the final activation sequences. At 62, she had dedicated the last 15 years of her life to this moment. A weapon system so revolutionary that even she sometimes questioned whether humanity should possess such power. "Director Chun and President Martinez will be here in 20 minutes, announced her assistant, Dr. James Park. "Are all systems showing green?" Katia nodded, her eyes scanning the dozens of holographic displays that surrounded the central chamber. "All quantum resonance generators are operating at optimal efficiency. The exotic matter containment systems are stable, and the targeting array has achieved full synchronization with our orbital sensor network." She paused at one particular display, watching as streams of data flowed across the screen like digital waterfalls. James, run one final diagnostic on the neural interface system. If the president authorizes activation, I want to be absolutely certain that our connection to the quantum field remains stable. Dr. Park moved to a secondary console, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. Katia, are you certain we should reveal the full scope of ZEUS to the president? Some aspects of a system might be difficult for him to accept. Katia understood his concern. Project ZEUS wasn't simply an advanced weapons platform. It was something far more complex and ethically challenging. The system's true capabilities went beyond anything the consortium could imagine. But those same capabilities raised questions about humanity's willingness to cross lines that other species had chosen to respect. The president needs to understand what we're offering him, Katia replied firmly. He can't make an informed decision without knowing the full truth about what ZEUS represents. The central chamber stretched out around them like a technological cathedral. The walls curved upward into a domed ceiling that pulsed with soft blue light, created by the quantum field generators that formed the heart of the ZEUS system. At the center of the room, suspended in a complex array of force fields and energy conduits, floated a sphere of exotic matter roughly the size of a basketball. That sphere contained enough compressed energy to power Earth's entire civilization for 1,000 years. But, more importantly, it served as the focal point for a weapons system that could reach across interstellar distances and strike targets with pinpoint precision. Neural interface is showing optimal connectivity, Dr. Park reported. The quantum field is responding to test inputs with zero latency. If we activate the system, you'll have complete control over its targeting and intensity parameters. Katia approached the neural interface chair, a sleek, metallic seat surrounded by sensors and neural induction coils. When activated, the chair would allow her to merge her consciousness temporarily with the ZEUS system, giving her godlike control over forces that could reshape matter at the subatomic level. Dr. Petrova, came a voice from the chamber's communication system. The president has arrived. Shall I escort him down? Send him in, along with Director Chun, Katia replied. And, Dr. Park, activate the security protocols. No recording devices, no communication links outside this chamber. As the massive doors to the chamber slid open, President Martinez and Director Chun stepped inside, both stopping short as they took in the incredible sight before them. Neither had ever seen the ZEUS chamber in person, and the sheer scale of the technology was overwhelming. My God, President Martinez whispered, staring up at the quantum field generators that lined the walls. How long have you been working on this? 15 years, sir, Katia replied, walking over to greet them. We began development in 2110, shortly after the first reports of aggressive alien species reached Earth. The project was authorized by President Harrison as humanity's ultimate insurance policy. Director Chin circled the exotic matter sphere, her trained eye taking in the complex systems that surrounded it. This is far beyond anything in our public technology databases. How did you develop quantum field manipulation on this scale without anyone noticing? Carefully, Katia replied with a slight smile. And with significant help from some of our alien allies. The Altarians provided crucial research data, though they don't know what we've done with their information. They would be disturbed if they understood what we've accomplished. President Martinez approached the neural interface chair, his expression troubled. Dr. Petrova, I need you to explain exactly what this system is capable of. Director Chin's briefing documents were necessarily vague given the security classification. Katia gestured for them to gather around a holographic display that materialized near the central console. The image showed the solar system in perfect detail, with the consortium fleet clearly visible as red dots surrounding Earth. ZEUS is a quantum field manipulation system, she began. At its most basic level, it can alter the fundamental forces that hold matter together. We can increase or decrease gravitational fields, modify electromagnetic interactions, even adjust the strong and weak nuclear forces within a targeted area. Targeted how precisely? Director Chin asked. Down to individual atoms, if necessary, Dr. Park answered, joining the group. The system uses quantum entanglement to establish instantaneous connections with any target within approximately 50 light-years. Range is limited only by the amount of exotic matter we have available for each operation. President Martinez studied the display showing the consortium fleet. And what would happen if you targeted one of those alien ships? Kadia's expression grew somber. That depends on the specific parameters I choose, sir. At minimum power, I could disable their engines by disrupting the quantum fields that power their faster-than-light drives. At maximum power, she paused, clearly reluctant to continue. At maximum power, Dr. Petrova could effectively delete matter from existence. Dr. Park finished quietly. The quantum fields that hold atoms together would simply stop functioning within the targeted area. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. President Martinez stared at the exotic matter sphere, understanding for the first time the true scope of what humanity had created. "You're describing a weapon that could destroy entire planets," he said finally. "Yes, sir," Kadia confirmed. "Though we've built in multiple safeguards to prevent accidental activation at those power levels. The neural interface requires conscious intent for each increase in destructive capacity." Director Chun looked up from her study of the technical readouts. "Could the consortium detect the system if we activated it?" "Not the system itself," Kadia replied. "The quantum fields we generate exist outside normal space-time, so conventional sensors can't detect them. However, the effects of our targeting would be immediately obvious. Ships losing power, gravitational anomalies, or—" She gestured vaguely, unwilling to describe the more devastating possibilities. President Martinez walked slowly around the chamber, taking in the full scope of the technology surrounding him. "Dr. Petrova, I need to ask you a direct question. Do you believe humanity should use this weapon?" Kadia had known this question would come, and she had spent years preparing her answer. "Sir, I believe humanity should do whatever is necessary to survive and thrive. The consortium's decision to isolate us is based on fear of our potential. ZEUS represents the realization of that potential." "That's not an answer to my question," the president pressed. "You've created a weapon system that could potentially destroy entire civilizations. Do you believe we should use it?" Kadia met his gaze directly. "I believe we should demonstrate to the consortium that their fear is justified, but their isolation strategy is futile. Humanity cannot be contained, Mr. President. We are what we are, adaptable, innovative, and dangerous when threatened. ZEUS simply gives us the means to prove that point without accepting exile. And if we're wrong," Director Chun interjected, "if the consortium responds to our demonstration by uniting against us with their full military might." Dr. Park answered from his position at the control console. "Then we'll face that challenge with capabilities they can't imagine. The consortium has grown complacent over 10,000 years of peace. Their military technology is advanced, but conservative. ZEUS represents a completely new paradigm in warfare." President Martinez studied the holographic display again, watching the slow movement of consortium ships around Earth. "Show me what a demonstration would look like. Minimum necessary force to prove our point without causing unnecessary casualties." Kadia moved to the neural interface chair and activated the preliminary connection systems. Immediately, streams of data began flowing across the displays as the quantum field generators responded to her brain patterns. "I would target the flagship of each major fleet contingent," she explained as targeting reticles appeared on the display. "Disable their primary power systems without affecting life support or artificial gravity. The ships would be dead in space, but the crews would be unharmed." "How many ships?" Director Chen asked. 37 vessels representing 8 different consortium species, Dr. Park reported, reading from his console. "The demonstration would disable approximately 60% of the fleet's offensive capability while leaving them completely helpless to retaliate." "And they would understand this was intentional?" the president asked. "The precision and coordination of the attacks would make that clear," Kadia confirmed. "No natural phenomenon or conventional weapon could target so many ships simultaneously with such specific effects. They would know they were dealing with technology beyond their understanding." President Martinez was quiet for several minutes, weighing the decision that would determine humanity's future. Sarah Chan watched him carefully, understanding the burden he carried. Either choice, surrender or resistance, would have consequences that would echo through history. "Dr. Petrova," the president said finally, If we activate ZEUS, how long before the consortium understands what they're facing? Immediately upon activation, they'll know something unprecedented has occurred. Full understanding of our capabilities that might take them days or weeks to analyze. But they'll know within minutes that humanity possesses technology that shouldn't exist. And our evacuation from the colonies? Director Chen asked, if we choose this path, what happens to the millions of humans currently outside the solar system? Kadia's expression darkened. That depends on how the consortium responds to our demonstration. If they choose to negotiate, we can demand safe passage for all human civilians. If they choose to escalate, she didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. The millions of humans scattered across dozens of worlds would become hostages in a conflict that could reshape the galaxy. There's another consideration, Dr. Park added quietly. The Altarians and Centauri Federation voted against our isolation. A demonstration of ZEUS might encourage them to openly support humanity's readmission to the consortium. President Martinez looked around the chamber one final time, his gaze lingering on the exotic matter sphere that pulsed with barely contained power. Dr. Petrova, how much time do you need to prepare for activation? If you give the authorization now, I can begin the activation sequence immediately. Full deployment would be achieved within 1 hour. And the demonstration itself? 30 seconds, Kadia replied simply. 30 seconds to disable 37 ships across multiple star systems simultaneously. President Martinez closed his eyes, and Sarah could see him weighing the impossible decision. Accept humanity's exile and condemn their civilization to centuries of isolation and technological stagnation, or unleash a weapon system that could spark the first galactic war in 10,000 years. Mr. President, Sarah said quietly, the consortium expects our formal response in 4 hours. If we're going to act, we need to decide now. When President Martinez opened his eyes, Sarah saw a determination there that hadn't been present before. Dr. Petrova, you have my authorization to activate Project ZEUS, but I want to be absolutely clear about the parameters. You will target only military vessels. You will use minimum necessary force to achieve the demonstration effect, and you will under no circumstances cause unnecessary casualties. Understood, sir, Kadia replied, moving toward the neural interface chair. And if the consortium escalates their response? President Martinez looked at the holographic display showing Earth surrounded by alien warships. Then, we'll show them what humanity is truly capable of when we're fighting for our survival. As Kadia settled into the neural interface chair and the quantum field generators began to hum with increasing power, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and terror. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy in a way that would be impossible to ignore. The age of isolation was about to end, one way or another. The neural interface activated with a sensation that Dr. Kadia Petrova could never adequately describe to anyone who hadn't experienced it. One moment she was sitting in the chair, surrounded by the familiar walls of the ZEUS chamber. The next, her consciousness expanded exponentially, stretching across space, and time to touch the quantum fabric that connected all matter in the universe. Through the ZEUS system, she could perceive the consortium fleet in perfect detail. 37 massive warships hung in space around Earth like predators, circling wounded prey. She could sense the alien crew members aboard each vessel. Thousands of beings from 8 different species, most of whom genuinely believe they were protecting galactic civilization from humanity's dangerous ambitions. They had no idea what was about to happen. Quantum field resonance achieved. Dr. Park announced from somewhere that seemed impossibly distant, though Kadia knew he was standing just meters away. All targeting parameters are locked. Neural interface showing optimal synchronization. Through her expanded perception, Kadia identified the flagship of each species contingent within the consortium fleet. The massive Zephyrian dreadnought Harmony's voice, bristling with weapons that could sterilize a planet. The sleek Vraxian battlecruiser Shadow of Order, its hull incorporating technology that bent light itself. The enormous Ketonan fortress ship Mountain's Heart, so heavily armored it could survive a direct hit from a stellar-class nuclear weapon. Each ship represented centuries of technological advancement and military refinement. Together, they constituted one of the most powerful naval forces ever assembled in galactic history. In 10 seconds, they would all be helpless. Dr. Petrova, President Martinez's voice reached her through the neural link. Are you ready to proceed? Yes, sir, Katia replied, though the words seemed to emerge from the quantum field itself rather than her physical voice. Targeting 37 vessels. Precision quantum field disruption focused on primary power distribution networks. No casualties. Maximum demonstration effect. You have authorization to proceed. Katia focused her expanded consciousness on the first target, the Zephyrian flagship. Through ZEUS, she could perceive the ship's internal structure in perfect detail, from the quantum processors that regulated life support to the exotic matter containment systems that powered their weapons. She identified the central power distribution hub, a complex network of energy conduits that fed power to every system aboard the massive vessel. With surgical precision, she began to alter the quantum fields that governed electromagnetic force within that specific area. Not enough to cause explosions or structural damage, but sufficient to disrupt the flow of energy throughout the ship's entire power grid. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Aboard the Harmony's voice, Captain Zelfek was reviewing the final terms of Earth's isolation when every light on his bridge suddenly flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing the command center in red light, but his primary tactical displays remained dark. Report, he barked, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles in a standard galactic. Sir, we've lost main power throughout the ship, his engineering officer announced, her voice tight with confusion. All primary systems are offline, but I'm detecting no damage to any power generation equipment. It's as if the energy simply stopped flowing. Before Captain Zelfek could respond, similar reports began flooding in from every ship in his fleet group. Then from the Vraxian ships, then from the Ketonans, Altarians, and all the others. In the space of 30 seconds, 37 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy had been reduced to floating hulks, dependent on backup power systems that could barely maintain life support, much less weapons or faster-than-light drives. Back in the ZEUS chamber, Katia slowly withdrew her consciousness from the quantum field, the sensation of returning to her physical body always disorienting after such an expansion of awareness. The neural interface chair powered down with a soft hum, and she found herself back in the familiar surroundings of humanity's most secret facility. Targets successfully disabled, she announced, her voice slightly hoarse from the neural strain. All 37 vessels are operating on emergency power only. Their faster-than-light capability has been completely neutralized. President Martinez stared at the holographic display, where the red dots representing consortium ships now pulsed with a different pattern, indicating their disabled status. They can't escape, not unless they want to spend several decades traveling at sublight speeds, Dr. Park confirmed, reading from his instruments. The quantum field disruption specifically targeted their exotic matter containment systems. Those ships aren't going anywhere until they can effect major repairs. Director Chun was monitoring communications intercepts from the alien fleet. Sir, we're picking up massive emergency transmissions from the consortium ships. They're trying to understand what happened, but their analysis equipment can't detect any evidence of an attack. That's the beauty of quantum field manipulation, Katia explained, still recovering from the neural interface connection. From their perspective, the laws of physics simply stopped working correctly in very specific areas of their ships. They'll find no residual energy signatures, no foreign objects, no evidence of conventional weapons fire. Through the communication system, they could hear fragments of alien voices as Earth's intelligence services intercepted and translated the frantic messages passing between the disabled ships. Impossible energy pattern disruption, no external causative factors detected. Recommend immediate consultation with the Science Directorate. Completely unprecedented phenomenon. President Martinez listened to the chaos unfolding among the consortium fleet with grim satisfaction. How long before they understand what really happened? Their first assumption will be some kind of natural phenomenon, Dr. Park explained. Space is full of exotic energies and quantum fluctuations that can sometimes cause unusual effects. But the precision and timing of these disruptions will eventually force them to consider artificial causation. At which point, they'll realize that Earth, the planet they just finished isolating, somehow possesses technology capable of disabling their most advanced warships from a distance, Director Chen added. Katia stood from the neural interface chair, her legs still slightly unsteady from the experience. The next few hours will be crucial. The consortium leadership will be forced to choose between acknowledging humanity's capabilities and negotiating or escalating the situation by calling for reinforcements. And if they choose escalation, the president asked. Katia's expression hardened. Then, we show them what ZEUS can do at higher power levels. The implications hung in the air like a sword. The demonstration had been carefully designed to prove humanity's capabilities without causing casualties. But the ZEUS system was capable of far more devastating effects. If the consortium chose to respond with force, humanity would be prepared to defend itself with weapons that made their current arsenal look like primitive clubs. Sir, Director Chen announced, monitoring her communications equipment. We're receiving a priority transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. Ambassador Kelthera is requesting immediate communication with Earth's leadership. Put him through, President Martinez ordered, settling into his chair with the bearing of someone who had just gained significant negotiating leverage. The main display activated, showing Ambassador Kelthera's familiar form, though his usual composure was notably strained. Behind him, the Harmony's voice bridge was lit only by emergency lighting, and crew members could be seen working frantically at damage control stations. President Martinez, Kelthera began without preamble. We need to discuss the events of the past hour. Indeed we do, Ambassador, the president replied calmly. I trust your ships are experiencing some technical difficulties. Kelthera's large eyes narrowed slightly. You know precisely what has occurred. The question is how humanity has achieved what should be impossible with your current level of technology. Our technology has advanced considerably since we joined the consortium, President Martinez said with deliberate understatement. Perhaps more than your intelligence services realized. This was not advancement, Kelthera replied sharply. This was a fundamental manipulation of physical laws on a scale that requires technology beyond anything in the consortium databases. How did you acquire such capabilities? President Martinez leaned forward, his expression becoming more serious. Ambassador, your consortium just voted to isolate humanity because you feared our potential for technological development and military innovation. You were concerned that we might become too dangerous for galactic peace. It appears your concerns were justified. The alien ambassador was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with the implications of what had occurred. Are you claiming responsibility for the power failures affecting our fleet? I'm claiming that humanity is not as helpless as you assumed when you decided to impose this quarantine, the president replied. We've had 50 years to study consortium technology, to learn from your sciences, and to develop our own innovations. Did you really think we would remain static while expanding among the stars? The precision of these failures suggests targeting technology that shouldn't exist, Kelthera insisted. Quantum field manipulation on this scale, across multiple vessels simultaneously, requires computing power and energy generation capabilities that would be visible to our monitoring systems. Dr. Park stepped forward slightly, catching the president's eye. Through their internal communication system, he whispered, Sir, their analysis is actually quite accurate. They're correct that conventional technology couldn't achieve what we just demonstrated. They just don't understand the true nature of quantum field mechanics. President Martinez nodded almost imperceptibly before addressing the ambassador again. Perhaps the consortium's understanding of physics isn't as complete as you assumed. Humanity has always excelled at finding new applications for established principles. Katia watched the exchange with growing interest. The president was walking a careful line, neither confirming nor denying humanity's responsibility, while making it clear that Earth was far from defenseless. The demonstration had achieved its intended effect. The consortium now understood that their quarantine strategy had serious flaws. What do you want? Kelthera asked finally, abandoning diplomatic pleasantries. We want what we've always wanted, President Martinez replied. Recognition of humanity's right to exist and expand among the stars. We want our colonies to remain under human control, our trade agreements to be honored, and our technological development to proceed without interference. The consortium's decision was based on legitimate concerns about human expansionism and military development, the ambassador protested. Your actions today have only confirmed our worst fears about your species' dangerous potential. Then perhaps you should have considered the wisdom of forcing a dangerous species into isolation. Director Chun interjected, speaking for the first time since the communication began. Did you really think we would simply accept exile without exploring every possible means of defending ourselves? Kelthera's expression shifted, showing what might have been the beginning of understanding. You're saying this capability was developed specifically in response to our isolation decision. We're saying that humanity takes threats to our survival very seriously, President Martinez replied. Your quarantine represents an existential threat to our civilization. We've responded accordingly. The alien ambassador looked around his darkened bridge, where crew members were still struggling to restore primary power. And if the consortium were to reconsider its position regarding human isolation, then we would be very interested in discussing the terms of our continued participation in galactic civilization, the president answered. But those discussions would need to acknowledge the reality of our current capabilities. You're demanding a seat at the consortium council table, Kelthera said, recognition dawning in his alien features. We're demanding the respect that our capabilities warrant, President Martinez corrected. Humanity has proven that we cannot be safely ignored or casually dismissed. The question now is whether the consortium prefers to have us as allies or as an independent force operating outside your control. The communication link fell silent as Kelthera considered the implications. Around him, his crew continued working to restore their ship's systems, but everyone present understood that the technical problems were merely symptoms of a much larger shift in galactic power dynamics. I will need to consult with the Consortium Council, Kelthera said finally. This situation has evolved beyond my authority to address. Of course, President Martinez agreed. But, Ambassador, I should mention that our patience is not unlimited. The longer your fleet remains in our system as an occupying force, the more likely it becomes that we'll feel compelled to take additional defensive measures. The threat was delivered politely, but unmistakably. Katia suppressed a smile as she recognized the president's negotiating tactics. The consortium now had to consider the possibility that humanity might escalate beyond mere power disruptions to more devastating demonstrations. How long do you require for your consultations? The president asked. 12 hours, Kelthera replied. Perhaps longer if the council requires additional analysis of your capabilities. Very well. But, Ambassador, I want to be clear about one thing. The demonstration you've experienced today represents a fraction of our defensive potential. If the consortium chooses to escalate this situation by bringing in additional forces, you may find the consequences unacceptable. With that, President Martinez terminated the communication, leaving the consortium fleet to contemplate their suddenly precarious position. Katia looked around the ZEUS chamber, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and apprehension. The demonstration had succeeded beyond their best projections. The consortium was now forced to acknowledge humanity's power and negotiate from a position of uncertainty rather than overwhelming superiority. But she also understood that the next 12 hours would determine whether humanity had just won their independence or started a war that could consume the entire galaxy. 8 hours had passed since the ZEUS demonstration, and the consortium's response was unlike anything the galactic community had seen in millennia. Emergency sessions were being held on dozens of worlds as species representatives struggled to understand how a newly spacefaring civilization had somehow acquired technology that surpassed their most advanced systems. In the Deep Space Communication Hub orbiting the Zephyrian homeworld, Council Prime Vorthak studied the reports streaming in from the disabled fleet around Earth. Each analysis made the situation more bewildering. The human attack, if it could even be called an attack, had targeted specific systems aboard 37 ships with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of alien technology, yet left no trace of conventional weapons or energy discharge. The quantum resonance patterns are completely unprecedented, reported Chief Science Advisor Kelvin, her tentacles writhing with agitation as she manipulated holographic data displays. Whatever the humans did, it operated on fundamental forces that we barely understand ourselves. And You're certain this wasn't some kind of natural phenomenon? Vorthak asked, though he already knew the answer. Impossible, Kelten replied firmly. Natural quantum fluctuations don't target specific ship systems while leaving everything else untouched. This was deliberate, controlled, and executed with mathematical precision that suggests computational capabilities far beyond what Earth should possess. Across the council chamber, Ambassador Threll of the Vraxian Empire leaned forward in his gravity-controlled seating apparatus. The real question isn't how they accomplished this, but why they stopped at a mere demonstration. If the humans truly possess this level of technological capability, they could have destroyed our fleet entirely, which suggests they want to negotiate rather than fight. Observed Counselor Zenithy of the Altarian Federation, her crystalline form flickering with patterns of concern. My species voted against the isolation protocol precisely because we believe humanity could be reasoned with. Vorthak's primary manipulator appendages clicked together in thought. The humans' message was clear enough. They're demanding recognition of their technological parity and rejection of the isolation protocol. The question is whether we can afford to grant those demands. Can we afford not to? Threll countered. If they can disable our most advanced warships at will, what prevents them from targeting our worlds directly? The chamber fell silent as that possibility sank in. The consortium's power had always rested on technological and numerical superiority. If humanity could neutralize that advantage, the entire galactic order might need to be reconsidered. There's another factor to consider, Kelvin announced, manipulating her displays to show long-range sensor data. Our deep space monitoring stations are detecting unusual quantum signatures emanating from approximately 70 star systems with human colonies. Whatever technology Earth used against our fleet appears to be present throughout their entire territorial expansion. Vorthak's breathing slits flared with alarm. You're saying every human colony has this capability? The energy signatures are consistent with what we detected during the Earth incident, Kelvin confirmed. If our analysis is correct, humanity has distributed this technology across their entire spacefaring civilization. The implications were staggering. The consortium had assumed they were dealing with an isolated homeworld that could be contained through naval blockade. Instead, they faced a distributed network of technologically advanced colonies, each potentially capable of the same devastating precision attacks that had crippled their fleet. Council Prime, came a communication from the fleet around Earth. Ambassador Kelther reports that Earth's leadership is requesting an update on our deliberations. They're expressing concern about the length of our consultation period. How diplomatically are they expressing this concern? Vorthak asked dryly. They've informed the ambassador that continued occupation of their system by disabled warships is being viewed as an act of aggression, the communication officer replied. They're requesting immediate withdrawal of all consortium forces beyond Earth's outer system boundary. And if we refuse, they haven't explicitly stated consequences, but the implication was clear. Threll's species' equivalent of a laugh emerged as a low harmonic vibration. The humans are politely suggesting that our disabled fleet withdraw or face escalation. The audacity is almost admirable. Audacity backed by demonstrated capability, Zenithy pointed out. We cannot ignore the possibility that they could make our situation significantly worse if we refuse to negotiate. Vorthak studied the tactical displays showing the distribution of human colonies throughout consortium space. 70 star systems, millions of human colonists, and now the suggestion that each location possessed technology capable of disabling entire fleets. The isolation protocol hadn't just failed, it had revealed that humanity was already too widespread and too powerful to contain. Counselor Zenithy, Vorthak said finally, your species has maintained positive relations with humanity throughout this crisis. What is your assessment of their likely response to continued resistance? The Altarian's crystalline form pulsed with carefully considered patterns. Based on our interactions with human delegations over the past 50 years, I believe they genuinely prefer negotiation to conflict. However, they've also demonstrated remarkable adaptability when faced with existential threats. If we continue to treat them as a threat to be contained rather than a civilization to be respected, they will likely respond with increasing demonstrations of their defensive capabilities, which could destabilize the entire galactic order, Threll observed grimly. The galactic order has already been destabilized, Kelthin interjected, her scientific mind cutting through diplomatic niceties. We're faced with a species that has achieved technological capabilities we don't understand, deployed across dozens of star systems, and backed by a demonstrated willingness to use those capabilities when threatened. Our previous assumptions about human limitations were obviously flawed. Vorthak considered the options available to the consortium. Military escalation seemed inadvisable given humanity's demonstrated technological advantages. Economic isolation was meaningless if humans could develop such advanced capabilities independently. Cultural assimilation had failed over 50 years of peaceful interaction. There's one other factor we haven't discussed, Xenothes said quietly. The psychological impact on other consortium member species. If word spreads that humanity forced us to negotiate through technological superiority, other species might begin questioning the consortium's authority. You're suggesting this could inspire additional independence movements, Vorthak realized. I'm suggesting that humanity's actions today have demonstrated that the consortium is not invulnerable, Xenothes replied. That revelation will have consequences far beyond our immediate dealings with Earth. The Council Chamber's communication system activated, announcing an incoming priority transmission from the fleet around Earth. Council Prime, Earth's leadership is transmitting a formal message for the Consortium Council. Display it, Vorthak ordered. President Martinez appeared on the main screen, his expression serious but not hostile. Behind him stood Director Chun and, notably, a human woman in a scientific uniform who hadn't appeared in previous communications. Council Prime Vorthak, members of the Consortium Council, the President began, I am addressing you directly because the situation around Earth requires immediate resolution. Our demonstration 8 hours ago was intended to prove that humanity cannot be safely isolated or ignored. I believe we have made our point. However, the President continued, we understand that our capabilities may be seen as threatening to galactic stability. We want to address those concerns directly. The woman in the scientific uniform stepped forward. I am Dr. Katia Petrova, Director of Earth's Advanced Defense Systems. The technology demonstrated today represents humanity's commitment to defending our civilization, but it was never intended as a threat to peaceful species. What we're proposing, President Martinez resumed, is a new framework for human participation in galactic civilization, one that acknowledges our technological capabilities while providing guarantees about their responsible use. Vorthak exchanged glances with the other council members. The humans were offering to negotiate the terms of their own integration rather than simply demanding acceptance. Specifically, Dr. Petrova continued, humanity is prepared to share limited aspects of our defensive technology with allied species in exchange for guaranteed territorial rights and representation proportional to our technological contributions. The offer sent shockwaves through the council chamber. Humanity was proposing to transform the crisis into an opportunity for mutual advancement. Furthermore, President Martinez added, we're prepared to establish technological exchange agreements that would allow consortium species to benefit from human innovations, while ensuring that our most sensitive defensive capabilities remain secure. What guarantees would you provide regarding the use of your capabilities against consortium member worlds? Vorthak asked, speaking for the first time in the exchange. The same guarantees any consortium member provides, the President replied. Adherence to galactic law, respect for territorial sovereignty, and commitment to peaceful resolution of disputes. Our defensive systems would only be used in response to direct threats to human worlds or populations. Dr. Petrova manipulated a control device, and the transmission display expanded to show technical readouts. To demonstrate our commitment to transparency, we're prepared to allow limited scientific observation of our defensive systems by neutral consortium scientists. This would provide verification of our claims about their purely defensive nature. Threll leaned forward intently. You would allow consortium scientists to study the technology that disabled our fleet? Selected aspects of the technology, Dr. Petrova clarified. Enough to verify that our capabilities are what we claim, not enough to compromise our defensive advantages. The proposal was elegant in its audacity. Humanity was offering to prove their trustworthiness by voluntarily submitting to limited inspection, while maintaining the technological edge that had forced the consortium to negotiate in the first place. And if the consortium accepts this framework, Vorthak asked, then we return to the status quo that existed before the isolation protocol, President Martinez replied. Human colonies continue normal operations, trade agreements are restored, and we participate in galactic civilization as technological equals rather than junior partners. With the addition of formal recognition of human territorial claims and proportional representation in consortium governance, Director Chen added, the humans weren't just demanding an end to their isolation. They were demanding promotion to senior status within the galactic community. It was a breathtaking reversal of the situation that had existed just 24 hours earlier. We'll need time to consider your proposal, Vorthak said finally. Of course, President Martinez replied. However, we do need resolution of the immediate situation. The continued presence of your disabled fleet in our system is causing considerable anxiety among our population. What are you suggesting? Vorthak asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Immediate withdrawal of all consortium military forces from the Sol system. The president stated clearly, our defensive systems will remain on standby until negotiations are complete, but we cannot accept the continued occupation of our home system. It was a reasonable request backed by overwhelming force. The disabled consortium fleet was helpless and represented nothing but a liability as long as it remained near Earth. Very well, Vorthak agreed. The fleet will withdraw to neutral space immediately. Formal negotiations can begin once our vessels have achieved safe distance from your system. Thank you, Council Prime. We look forward to productive discussions about humanity's future role in galactic civilization. As the transmission ended, Vorthak looked around the council chamber at his fellow representatives. In the space of a single day, humanity had transformed from an isolated junior species to a technological powerhouse capable of dictating terms to the galaxy's most powerful alliance. Counselor Zenithy, he said finally, I believe your species was correct to oppose the isolation protocol. The question now, Threll observed, is whether we can adapt to this new reality quickly enough to maintain galactic stability. Kelthan continued studying her technical displays. Based on the quantum signatures we're detecting, I suspect humanity has capabilities we haven't even seen yet. This demonstration may have been just the beginning. As the consortium fleet began its withdrawal from Earth's system, Council Prime Vorthak contemplated the rapidly changing galactic order. Humanity had just announced itself as a major power through a combination of technological superiority and diplomatic skill that few species could have matched. The age of human isolation was definitely over. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready for what came next. 6 months had passed since the ZEUS demonstration, and the galaxy was still adapting to its new reality. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the Consortium Central Council on Kepler Prime, representatives from over 300 species gathered for the most significant treaty signing in galactic history. President Martinez stood at the podium normally reserved for Council Prime Vorthak, addressing the assembled delegates as Earth's first official representative to the Consortium Council. Behind him, a holographic display showed the ceremonial signing of the Terra Accords, the agreement that formally recognized humanity as a senior member of galactic civilization. 6 months ago, the president began, many of you viewed humanity as a threat to galactic stability. Today, we're here to sign agreements that will benefit every member of our growing alliance. Dr. Katia Petrova sat in the human delegation section, watching the proceedings with satisfaction tempered by caution. The negotiations have been intense, requiring humanity to reveal more about their capabilities than she had initially wanted while securing guarantees that would protect Earth's interests for centuries to come. The Terra Accords were comprehensive, covering everything from territorial rights to technology sharing protocols. Most importantly, they established humanity's right to maintain their defensive capabilities while providing frameworks for their responsible use. The quantum field manipulation technology that humanity has shared with allied species represents the single greatest advance in peaceful applications of exotic physics in over 1,000 years, announced Chief Science Advisor Kelthan, speaking for the consortium's research division. Human innovations in medical quantum therapy have already saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. that had been the masterstroke of the negotiations. Rather than simply threatening potential enemies, humanity had demonstrated beneficial applications of their technology. Quantum field manipulation could heal genetic disorders, enhance agricultural yields, and provide clean energy generation on a scale that made previous technologies obsolete. Ambassador Kelthra rose from his delegation's seating area. The Zephyrian Republic wishes to formally acknowledge humanity's contributions to galactic civilization and to express our gratitude for the medical technologies that have eliminated several hereditary disorders from our population. Similar statements followed from dozens of species. The Altarians praised human innovations in crystalline matrix enhancement. The Ketonans celebrated advances in gravitational engineering. The Vraxians, somewhat reluctantly, acknowledged improvements in their military defensive systems. But the most significant moment came when Council Prime Vorthak announced the establishment of the Galactic Defense Initiative, a joint military command that would include human representatives in senior leadership positions. The threats that face our galaxy require capabilities that no single species can provide, Vorthak explained. Human defensive technologies, combined with the experience and resources of established consortium members, will create the most effective peacekeeping force in galactic history. Director Chun leaned over to whisper to Dr. Petrova. 2 years ago, they wanted to isolate us because we were too militarily advanced. Now, they want us to lead their military alliance. Katia smiled grimly. Fear has a way of clarifying priorities. They've realized that having us as allies is far preferable to having us as independent operators. The truth was more complex than either side would publicly admit. The consortium had discovered that humanity's technological capabilities extended far beyond the ZEUS demonstration. Intelligence reports indicated that human colonies were developing innovations at a rate that would make them functionally superior to most consortium species within a century. The choice had become clear: integrate humanity as equals or face the eventual reality of human technological dominance. Dr. Petrova, came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Counselor Zenithy approaching, her crystalline form reflecting the ceremonial lighting of the assembly hall. I wanted to speak with you privately about the restricted technology provisions of the Accords. They moved to a quieter section of the hall, away from the ongoing ceremony. Zenithy's species communicated partially through bioluminescent patterns, and Katia could see concern flickering across the alien's form. The Consortium Council appreciates humanity's willingness to share beneficial applications of your technology. Zenithy began carefully. However, there are some members who remain concerned about the capabilities you haven't revealed. Katia had been expecting this conversation. Which capabilities specifically? Our deep space monitoring stations have detected quantum signatures from human space that suggest your defensive systems are far more extensive than what was demonstrated 6 months ago, Zenithy replied. Some council members worry that humanity is still concealing the full scope of their military potential. Would you prefer that we weren't? Katia asked bluntly. Counselor, the ZEUS demonstration was carefully calibrated to prove our point without revealing everything we're capable of. The fact that we have additional capabilities should reassure the consortium that we're committed to peaceful coexistence. How so? Zenithy's patterns shifted to show confusion. Because if we intended conquest, we would have already begun, Katia explained. Humanity has had overwhelming military advantages for months now, yet we've chosen negotiation and cooperation. Our undisclosed capabilities represent insurance against future threats, not preparation for aggression. Zenithy's form pulsed with what Katia had learned to recognize as thoughtful consideration. The Council fears that humanity might eventually view the consortium as a limitation on your expansion. The Council fears human ambition, Katia corrected. But they misunderstand what drives us. Yes, humanity is expansionist and innovative. Those traits allowed us to thrive in a hostile galaxy. But we're also social creatures who value cooperation and mutual benefit. The consortium offers us partners in exploration and development that we couldn't achieve alone. And if those partnerships became insufficient for human needs, Katia met the alien's gaze directly. Then, we would negotiate new arrangements that met everyone's needs. Counselor, The consortium spent millennia believing that galactic peace required limiting the potential of its member species. Humanity's emergence has proven that prosperity and stability can coexist with technological advancement and territorial expansion. Before Zenithy could respond, the Assembly Hall's attention was drawn back to the podium where President Martinez was concluding his address. The Terra Accords represent more than just humanity's admission to senior consortium membership, he was saying. They establish a new paradigm for galactic civilization, one based on mutual respect for different species' capabilities and contributions. Over the coming decades, human colonies will continue expanding throughout the galaxy, but we will do so as partners with existing civilizations rather than competitors. The technologies we've developed will be shared with allies, while our defensive capabilities will protect the peace that has benefited all our species. Most importantly, the president continued, these accords establish that technological advancement and military capability need not be threats to galactic stability if they're wielded by species committed to cooperation and mutual benefit. As the formal signing ceremony began, Dr. Petrova reflected on the remarkable transformation that had occurred. 6 months ago, humanity had faced exile and technological stagnation. Today, they were being welcomed as leaders of galactic civilization. But she also knew that the real work was just beginning. The Terra Accords provided a framework for human integration, but the success of that integration would depend on humanity's ability to balance their natural drives for expansion and innovation with the responsibilities of galactic citizenship. Dr. Petrova, President Martinez called out, gesturing for her to join him at the signing table. As the architect of humanity's defensive capabilities, your signature is required on the military cooperation protocols. As she approached the table, Katia noticed representatives from dozens of species watching her with expressions ranging from admiration to wariness. The galaxy was still adjusting to the reality that a species barely 50 years removed from planetary isolation had become one of their most important allies. She signed the documents that would regulate humanity's use of quantum field manipulation technology, establish protocols for sharing beneficial innovations with allied species, and create joint military commands that would protect galactic peace for generations to come. Counselor Threll, President Martinez addressed the Vraxian representative. I understand your species has requested consultation on defensive applications of human technology. The reptilian alien nodded slowly. The Vraxian Empire has faced increasing raids from extragalactic pirates along our frontier regions. Traditional defensive measures have proven inadequate. We would be honored to assist, the president replied. Human defensive specialists can be deployed to your frontier systems within the month. Similar requests have been flooding in from across the galaxy. Species that had initially feared human military capabilities were now eager to benefit from them. The transformation was remarkable. Humanity had gone from being seen as a threat to being viewed as protectors. But Katia understood the deeper implications of this shift. Humanity was rapidly becoming indispensable to galactic security, which gave them influence far beyond their formal political status. Other species might hold more council seats or control larger territories, but everyone was beginning to depend on human innovation and defensive capabilities. The ceremony is complete, announced Council Prime Vorthak as the last signatures were added to the Accords. Humanity is now formally recognized as a senior member of the Galactic Trade Consortium, with all rights and responsibilities that status entails. The Assembly Hall erupted in polite applause from hundreds of species, but Katia could sense the underlying currents of the moment. This wasn't just a diplomatic ceremony. It was the formal recognition of a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. As the delegates began to disperse, Director Chen joined President Martinez and Dr. Petrova near the podium. Sir, she said quietly, we're receiving reports from our monitoring stations. Several previously unknown species have been observed at the galaxy's edge, apparently conducting long-range reconnaissance of consortium space. External threats? The president asked. Possibly. The quantum signatures suggest technology that doesn't match any known galactic civilization. Intelligence believes we may be dealing with extragalactic entities. Katia felt a familiar tension building. Humanity had just achieved acceptance within galactic civilization, but new challenges were already appearing on the horizon. How advanced are these unknown entities? She asked. Preliminary analysis suggests technological capabilities comparable to advanced consortium species, Director Chen replied. But their operational patterns are unlike anything in our databases. President Martinez looked around the assembly hall, where representatives from hundreds of species were celebrating the new era of cooperation. Dr. Petrova, how quickly could we expand ZEUS coverage to protect the entire consortium's outer territories? With cooperation from allied species providing resources and strategic locations, we could establish comprehensive defensive coverage within 2 years, she replied after quick mental calculations. Then I suggest we begin immediately, the president decided. The galaxy has accepted humanity as protectors. Let's make sure we're worthy of that trust. As they left the assembly hall, Katia reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them to this point. Humanity had faced exile and chosen defiance, discovered strength and chosen responsibility, achieved power and chosen cooperation. The Terra Accords represented not just humanity's admission to galactic leadership, but their acceptance of the responsibility to protect and advance the civilization they had joined. It was a burden that would define human development for centuries to come. But it was also an opportunity unlike any in human history. Instead of being confined to a single world or even a single galaxy, humanity now had the chance to shape the development of civilizations across thousands of star systems. The age of human isolation was definitively over. The age of human leadership in galactic civilization had begun. Above Earth, the last of the consortium monitoring stations finally departed, their missions transformed from surveillance to cooperation. The planet that had once been threatened with technological quarantine was now the headquarters for the most advanced defensive network in galactic history. Dr. Katia Petrova stood in the ZEUS control center, watching as quantum field generators across dozens of star systems synchronize their operations under human coordination. The system that had been designed to protect Earth was now protecting an entire galactic civilization. It was, she thought, a much better use of humanity's dangerous potential.